All right, Johnny Nation, we're joined now by Matt Jones of Kentucky Sports Radio to preview the big game this weekend. You may know Matt from his coverage of Kentucky sports, football, and basketball, or perhaps his involvement with Ohio Valley Wrestling, which was featured in an awesome docuseries on Netflix called Wrestlers. If you haven't done so, check that out. But I'm excited to welcome on Matt Jones. Matt, I have to thank you because, well, this is actually 8 months in the making. On May 1st, I actually broke the news that St. John's would be replacing UCLA and playing Kentucky in the CBS Sports Classic. The news, as you can imagine, went a little bit viral and made its way to you at Kentucky Sports Radio. Matt, I graciously thank you because you shouted me out on Kentucky Sports Radio, gave me credit for breaking the story, and in a hilarious clip that I'm about to play here, you read out my Twitter handle, my old Twitter handle, which was Dave with 2 E's and an underscore, and you rate it as like Dave E. But I'll let the listeners hear this, and you're actually the reason and the inspiration why I changed my Twitter handle the next day to a nice and clean SJU Dave. Take a listen, guys.
St. John's podcaster, Davey 8. He has 5,000 followers, so I mean,
we trust him.
I'm going to trust Davey 8 because it also confirms with the news I put earlier last week that St. John's will be entering the CBS Classic and will replace UCLA, which will lead to Kentucky St. John's in Atlanta this year. Do you like that?
I'm very excited about that game. When we did this earlier in the week, I picked UConn to join the event overall. But sure, one-off with Rick Pitino, I'm not going to complain about that. Being Atlanta, Kentucky can have the better crowd, not having to go up to New York or anything.
Yeah, I think that'll be packed.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'll get a lot of attention.
Kentucky and St. John's in Atlanta. That's going to be a packed house, cool game. That's going to be awesome.
Just as a fan, you're looking at it, Kentucky, UCLA, Kentucky St. John's, yeah, I'm all in. We knew it was going to happen sooner or later. They're going to play each other with the Pope and Pitino connection. If it happens in Atlanta first, I'm all for it.
All right, so let's go through. North Carolina will play Ohio State. We will play St. John's. Who has the biggest crowd? Us.
Yeah.
Us.
That's what we call it, Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's us. When Rick Pitino comes out, now, we gave him the applause with Mark Pope saying, basically walking out saying, giving him the applause. Does he get applause when he's introduced as the coach of St. John's about to play Kentucky?
He'll get a little, but I don't think so. It was my same opinion with Cal. He's there to beat your team. You don't give him a warm reception.
The fact that it's in Atlanta, I think he will get a little, I agree with Drew, a little bit of an applause. It won't be huge, but he won't get booed like he would maybe if he came in here or something.
I don't know if he would get booed even here now.
Maybe not now.
I think
in a game.
I think John Calipari would get booed, although there'll be a time that he won't. But I think even if Rick played here, I think he's going to get a lot of round applause. The kind of person that goes to the CBS Classic tends to be a person with a little bit of like financial means because it's the ticket's a little expensive. And then it's in December, so it's probably a hard. I bet he gets applause. I actually bet he gets a decent amount of applause.
All right, Matt. Again, thank you for that. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate you making some time for us.
Glad to do it. You guys, I'll tell you you probably don't know. I was at Rick Pitino's first game against at St. John's at Louis Carnesecca
Arena. Yep.
So I took the train out. I was in New York. I saw that it was happening. I took the train out to Queens. I thought, I can walk from the train to St. John's Arena. That's a long walk now. Yeah. I did it. I'd never even been to Queens, and I walked a long way through the streets of Queens, but enjoyed it. Ate pizza like right across the street at a place that was really, really good and was there. And Rick saw me, and he had a look like, man, I can't get away from you, kid. But it was great. It was very cool. That old arena. I'd obviously never been in. It was awesome. I don't remember who y'all played, but you won. And I'm really happy he's having success there. I loved him when he was at Kentucky, had a really bad relationship with him when he was at Louisville. I was probably one of his harshest critics, but he came on my show a couple years ago, and now I pull for St. John's. I'm not gonna say they're my second favorite team, but they may be close. I pull for you guys quite a bit.
That's interesting. You know what? I actually want to start there because for the New York fans, for the St. John's fans who may not be familiar with how much of a religion, I think most people have an idea, but how much of a religion Kentucky basketball is, and as Kentucky football gotten better, but obviously Kentucky basketball I think reigns supreme. Can you talk about that? I mean, obviously your relationship with Rick, you're covering him. I know you went to Duke Law School, but your time, you're known as the Kentucky guy, and then that transition from Rick being the Kentucky guy to then Louisville and the relationship there, how it changed for you, for the fan base, and in general of how Kentucky looks at Coach Pitino.
Yeah, I mean, I have a long history with Rick, right? So, like, probably the most popular Kentucky team in history was Rick's team, where 4 of the 5 starters were from Kentucky, and it was Jamal Mashburn, the team that lost. Non-Kentucky fans will remember the Christian Laettner shot. They lost on the Christian Laettner shot. That is probably the most popular team in Kentucky basketball history. 3 of those 4 guys from Kentucky were from the mountains of Eastern Kentucky, which is in Appalachia, which is where I grew up. I watched Richie Farmer, one of those guys, play since I was like 6 years old. So I became a Kentucky fan in large part due to those Pitino years. Then you fast forward, obviously we won the title when I was in college there. Transylvania, UK wins the title in 96, wins it again in 98 with Tubby. Then he goes to Louisville, and I rooted for him with the Celtics. Like we were all Celtics fans down here. And then he went to Louisville, and we all hated him. I mean, like we could not believe he did that. And then I got into Kentucky Sports Radio, and Rick was good foil, right? Because we hate Louisville, and there he is. And then because of my legal background, I ended up covering the Karen Cipher trial. And I was probably the person that covered it the most. And the famous lines of less than 15 seconds, I'm the one that put that out to the world. And they didn't like that, understandably so. And so we always did not have a good relationship. I liked Steve Masiello, who's obviously the coach at Manhattan. And he, when he got to St. John's, was like, listen, man, let's make this relationship good. And he sat up, and Rick came on the show, couldn't have been more gracious. And now it is amazing. 10 years ago, Rick Pitino was enemy number 1, and John Calipari could have been governor. And now Kentucky fans root for Rick Pitino. We're pulling hard for St. John's last year in the tournament against Arkansas. And then I won't say, I mean, Cal's maybe not hated anymore, but he's certainly not liked.
Sure.
It's crazy how things can flip.
Yeah. Matt, I want to go back to May, possibly even before that, to October of 24. You talk about how Rick's now beloved. He returns to Lexington. He wears the UK blue. Pissed off some St. John's fans with him putting that on, but I understand. St. John's fans have heard Rick talk about his love for Kentucky, for Camelot, since he stepped foot on campus here in Queens. From your perspective, from the Kentucky perspective, what does this game mean? What does it mean that Rick came back last year? What does it mean that after all these years, after Louisville, after, leaving Kentucky, after everything, it still means so much to him, how he speaks about Kentucky in such reverence, and just what he means to the state and the program.
Well, I think it's probably the case, if he were honest, he would say his 2 favorite places on earth are New York City and Lexington, Kentucky, right? So I think there's a sense in which for Kentucky fans to accept him, they needed that moment where he said, and I know I can see why as Arkansas fans it would annoy you that he wore the blue. I can see why, like, it was our practice, like we were going to be competing against you all. I can totally see why that would be annoying. I think it was very important, though, for Kentucky fans to re-embrace him, because it had been awful here. Remember his last game as the U of L coach against Kentucky, he walked out flipping us off out of Rupp Arena. It was bad. But I think him re-loving us the way we used to love him, I think really went a long way. And then when Mark Pope got hired, he was a big part of Mark Pope getting accepted here.
Yeah.
So Mark Pope gets hired on a Thursday night. fans were not happy at all. And I think three things happened, one of which was an NIL thing, one of which was him coming on my show, Mitch Barnhart, the AD, coming on my show and doing a really good job. But I think the third thing was Rick Pitino's video. Mm-hmm. Rick Pitino's video kind of made it to where people are like, oh, well, let's give him a chance. And the thought was Mark Pope will bring back those Rick years that we had, that we loved. And then, it was great. Now, as far as this game, Kentucky fans were very excited when it got announced. There's some talk we're going to bring back the denim uniforms that Mark wore, the denim when he played for Rick in 96. Right. I'm not sure if that's still happening or not. The problem has been, I think this game would have been crazy hyped up. Fans would have been really excited, but we haven't been good. And so I think a lot of Kentucky fans just are like, we just want to win the game. Like, they don't even care who the opponent is. This was really bad until they beat Indiana the other night. Yeah. In fairness, I still am not sure if we're good. I don't know if y'all are good, though, either. So
that's the thing. There was a lot of talk when this game was announced, and everybody had it circled on their calendar. This was supposed to be not only the marquee matchup of December, but the marquee matchup arguably for the entire non-conference schedule.
I said it was the best non-conference basketball game on the schedule in all of college basketball when it was officially announced, because at that time, and then when the AP poll came out, you have 2 top 10 teams in the AP. I mean, who doesn't want to be there and watch this?
Who are the highest
game?
NIL teams, right?
That's right.
In terms of, so I thought it was going to be a huge game.
Sure.
From the Kentucky perspective, and then I watched you all play Alabama, and I can't remember if you won or lost, but it was a great game. Yep. And insane. And I was like, oh, man, this is going to be so much fun. And then we just have laid such an egg against Gonzaga and Michigan State. Lost to Louisville. That was a decent performance, but we played so bad against Gonzaga. And then, you guys have struggled a little too. You had a lot of the same problems we did, which is you doesn't look like you need a point guard. And our point guard was hurt. Now, he just came back, and I think that's a big deal. You guys are going to be the first time Kentucky's played with a full roster this year. Jayden Quaintance is probably going to debut Saturday. Okay. And that's a top 10 pick that hasn't played a game yet. Yeah. Hasn't played a game in a year.
I want to get to that in a second. I need to ask you one ridiculous question before we get into the serious meat and potatoes of everything. When this game was announced, Mark Pope said that Coach Pitino needs to get with his tailor, and that he needs because Pope is coming with a special
he ain't beating
suit.
Rick dressing. Rick's the best dresser.
But you just talked about the denim uniforms possibly, or something special uniform wise coming out for this. So any insight to what kind of suit Pope might be dropping? And
Pope can't hang with Rick in the suit game. I mean, Rick looks. Listen, Rick.
I'm putting this out there so Coach P can hear it. I am bringing the suit game. I already started planning. Coach, just be ready, okay? Bring it. And the game's going to be elite. White suit? I'm not going white. I can't. Listen, I'm not trying to be the Don. Like, that position I've been taking. But I'm bringing the thunder. So I don't know what Coach has prepared, but he better get with his tailor because it's on right now.
$1 million.
Rick looks better now than he did at Louisville. Rick looked like a corpse when he was at Louisville. Like, you guys have made him look good. I don't know if that was that time in Greece. By the way, I was in Greece. I was in Athens one night. This was 2 summers ago. I was riding down the road in an Uber, and the guy goes, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, Kentucky. And he goes, "Rick Pitino." And I was like, "How do you know him?" And he was like, "He coached Panathinaikos." And he took me to the Olympiakos-Panathinaikos game.
Oh, that's dope.
Which Rick had coached in. Yeah. And I'll say this. I've been to many Kentucky-Louisville games and many Duke-Carolina games. Olympiakos-Panathinaikos is something else.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard Rick say it's the craziest basketball environment he's ever been in. I can see what he's saying. Yeah. But they love him even in Athens, Greece.
Of course.
But Pope is not going to be able to hang with the tailor. I actually don't know if Kentucky will do the denims because we've not been good. Yeah. They're trying to save it for something special, and we're not good yet. So I'm not sure if they'll wear them or not.
All right, let's get into the meat potatoes. Matt, you talked about Kentucky struggling. St. John's has had their own struggles. I think very similarly, there's a lot of things that really line up here. Kentucky lost 4 games, all to ranked opponents. St. John's has lost 3 games, all to ranked opponents. What has been the main problem for Kentucky that has plagued them up until this point?
Dustin, by the way, does he let you talk? Do you get to
Oh no, no,
talk?
listen, I'm enjoying it. I was gonna say
Okay, I just want to make
I got
sure. I
plenty for
want
you,
you
my
to be able
friends.
to talk too.
Nah, it's all
You
good.
He gets paid by the word. I can't.
Okay. Kentucky's main problem has been threefold. One, Jalen Lowe, their point guard, has not played much of the year. He just came back for the Indiana game. He was the difference in the game. So before him, they had no point guard, no offense. It was one of the hardest watches of a team I've ever seen in my life. With Jalen Lowe, they've been better. Now, I'm going to assume you're going to get a better version now that Lowe's playing. Second issue, they had not been hustling. I mean, the effort was just pitiful. The Gonzaga game is one of the most embarrassing games I've seen Kentucky play in my lifetime. I mean, it was just absolutely brutal. With basically a Kentucky home crowd, they lost by 40. That's pathetic. Now, the Indiana game was better, but Indiana's not that good. They also can't shoot. And I think y'all are dealing with the same thing, right? Like we can't shoot. So Mark Pope built this roster under the idea that we would have all these shooters and no one can make a shot. And I think, so the lack of a point guard, can't shoot, and then you throw in an effort issue, which is unacceptable. They've just been dreadful. I think they're going to have to reinvent themselves as like a dirty, gritty team, which is weird because that's not how Mark coaches. Rick is much more of like a play hard defense, give effort. Mark's really a spread them out 3-point shooting team, kind of like Rick was in his early years, many years ago. But we can't play like that because we can't shoot. So I think the key to the game is going to be, do you guys have a point guard? And then what are we going to get from Jayden Quaintance? Like, if he gives 15 really good minutes, I think Kentucky's got a really good shot. If they don't, we'll see. I do think there's going to be a lot of Kentucky fans there. Like, this got circled. Atlanta has so many Kentucky people. It's odd to me this is the first game because I think that place is going to clear out for North Carolina, Ohio State. So is it Ohio? Who they replace, Ohio State or UCLA?
St. John's replaced UCLA.
So they're going to play. I mean, who's going to North Carolina, Ohio State? Like, this should have been the second game. That's really odd to me, but.
This is the marquee matchup, and I agree with you with what you said. I think the shooting woes have been maybe your biggest Achilles heel right now. Has there been talk as whether or not Jayden's got a minutes limit? I know you said 15 minutes might be the magic number.
It might be less than that. It might be. Yeah. I think it might be like 10 to 12 minutes. He won't be the difference in the game, but they could just use him. They have a kid from Serbia, Yelovich, and he just hasn't been very good yet. So I think they need Quaintance. But he won't be. Difference in the game. How good's Jalen Lowe? Like, can we turn point guard against you guys from a disadvantage in our other games to an advantage because you all have had point guard issues? And can we make some shots? And then Otega Oweh's been kind of disappointing. I mean, he had been sort of a preseason All-American candidate. And he's not been bad, but he's not been kind of what they hoped. So, those are, I think, the keys. But look, Kentucky needs a win. I mean, the schedule was really hard. Pope wanted it to be. But it ended up harder than he even thought because Michigan State ended up better, I think, than people thought they would. So they need a win. I mean, they open SEC play next and they play at Alabama. So, they need a win, and I think that's what people are most concerned about.
I think St. John's fans feel the same way. We've lost 3 games to ranked teams. The big difference, though, is you've got so many opportunities in the SEC. I mean, every game is a quad 1, a quad 2 game at a minimum. The Big East is down this year. Yeah, we've got 2 games against UConn. We've got those circled. But some of those bottom-tier Big East games are not worth anything. So St. John's...
We're not. But the SEC's down from... it's maybe better than the Big East, but it's down from last year. I mean, last year, the SEC, every game was amazing. This year, Alabama's good, although they just got blown off the floor the other night. Arkansas's good. Tennessee's all right. Us... But then there's a big drop. Like last year, your Oklahomas and your Texas and your Missouris were really good. I don't really know if they are this year. Although Vandy looks like they're undefeated, so they might be all right. But it's the same issue. The Big 12 seems to be where the power is this year, more than the SEC last year.
Matt, again, you think it sounds like you think Jayden Quaintance is playing. I know that's the talk coming into this week. He's been a full go. Mark on Monday said we're down to just days and hours, maybe a week or so, not weeks or months. He's practiced the last 2 days. Jack Pilgrim today
he's playing. I don't care what they say. He's playing.
Yeah.
They've been targeting this day. They've been targeting this day for a month and a half. I mean, if he doesn't play, it'll only be because he warms up and doesn't have but he's playing. I mean, I think the thought is play him a little bit in this game, playing more against Bellarmine, and then he's ready for SEC play. I think that's the thought.
Is the thought also like you want to throw him out against higher end competition like a Zubiec for like Bryce Hopkins, like Dylan Mitchell, of what he's going to see more in SEC play kind of when Alabama and the rest of the time?
I don't know about that. I think they want him to have a full game. I think he'll play a lot against Bellarmine,
right?
Because I mean they're awful. So like he'll. But I think they want to put him in this action. They don't want at Alabama to be the first time he steps on the floor in a real game. So this feels like a good time. I mean, he's going to be great if he's healthy, but I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference in this game. I think, like I said, you tell me which point guard plays better, and that's going to be who wins the game, in my opinion.
Well, much of the Kentucky storyline this year has been around that report this offseason that $22 million was spent on this roster.
That's a misleading number. Okay, so
I don't believe that number. That number sounds crazy.
First of all, I don't think that's the number to start with. I assume all numbers are high because both sides have an agent, or excuse me, incentive
Absolutely.
to make the agents have an incentive to blow them up, and so do the schools, because you want it to seem like you'll spend a lot of money on guys, and that you're so. But to the extent it's a high number, because I do think Kentucky is, along with St. John's and Michigan, probably the teams with the highest payroll. To the extent that it's a high payroll, it's because they paid for 2 years with guys. So like Jalen Lowe, I don't know what his number is, but he committed to them for 2 years. So when the rules are complicated, but like you could double up your payments this year because rev share started this year. So if you paid them before July 1st, you could pay them more basically. So I think what they did is they gave Jalen Lowe and Mohamed Diabate and some of these guys that have 2 years of eligibility, they gave them a big check with an understanding they'd be here for 2 years.
Yeah, and that
so
is...
the $22 million to me, I would say it's more like 13 in this roster and another 8. I don't think it's 22. I think it's like 19 and another 6 in the next year's.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Now, that's still a lot of money.
Right.
And I still think they've paid more for their roster than anybody except maybe Michigan. But it's not what people think it is.
So I agree with that. And again, but the story it's ballooned. Everybody believes this number. Everybody talks about it, right? Otega Owe has led the way for Kentucky. We talked about he's kind of been up and down, but not at that all-American level. They go and get Denzel Aberdeen from Florida. He's been up and down.
He's been a disappointment. He's been a disappointment. I think if you were to say what's the biggest problem, he's been a disappointment. Brandon Garrison has not improved. I think a lot of this assumption would be that he would get better this year. Hasn't really happened. Lowe and Diabate have been hurt.
Right.
And then
but Lowe and Diabate are back now. And I think that both of them were such keys to how
we
you
would have
guys
beaten
looked
Carolina
against Indiana
if they were healthy. I still think we would have lost to Michigan State, Gonzaga, and Louisville. But I think we would have beaten Carolina if those guys were healthy.
So where I'm going here is that I think that there was a marketed improvement in the last 10 minutes of that Indiana game. I think that Jalen Lowe was responsible for a lot of success of how much offense he was able to create around him. I think Mo Diabate with his 14 points, 12 rebounds looked really good as a do-it-all guy. And you talked about how that Gonzaga loss was one of the worst you've ever seen. The UNC loss was pretty bad too. Pope was despondent after both of those losses. So how much, if anything, do you think changed since those losses and the Indiana win going into tomorrow?
Well, it was bad around here after the Gonzaga game. The Indiana win has helped. I think the narrative on this team, I don't think that they can't. If they get blown out against you all, it'll be bad. If it's a close game and they lose, fans are not going to be happy, but it'll be okay. But you got to remember, against Louisville, Michigan State, and Gonzaga, Kentucky was down 23 points in all 3 of those games at some point. Now, Louisville, they cut it to 1 possession at the end, but they were down huge. Kentucky fans are not used to being down 23 points 3 times in the year. So that's been the problem. The losses have stunk, but it's been how they've lost. And then the North Carolina loss at home really hurt because North Carolina's not very good. And that game was awful. Like, it was awful to watch. Both teams sucked. And North Carolina does not have their point guard, and their best player, Caleb Wilson, played bad in that game, and they still won. And I think there was a thing like fans going, how are we losing this game? That's, I think, the issue.
But to your point, the team that you're putting on the floor on Saturday is a very different team. So you almost chalk it up to
the North Carolina game didn't have Jalen Lowe, Mohamed Diabate, or Jayden Quaintance. So you're seeing a different team.
It's night and day as far as I'm concerned. And so I think when you start putting the full complement of players together, obviously you got a taste of it with Indiana. But now this week, when you actually have the full roster of guys, I'm not saying the first 10 or 12 games don't count. I mean, obviously they do for seeding and everything else. But I think that you can really measure the team starting with Saturday against St. John's.
Agree with that. It doesn't excuse the effort of those earlier games, but I agree with you about that. I think all you got to do is see the end of the Indiana game. At the end of the game, the 5 players that played the last 13 minutes, 4 of them didn't start that game. That was the changing of the guard. Basically, the team that had sucked all year set the bench while Otega Owe and the 4 guys that had been out played. And I think you'll see, I don't know who they'll start Saturday, but when it comes crunch time, you'll see Lowe, Owe, Williams, Diabate, and then either Quaintance or Garrison. And that was not who was playing against North Carolina.
What do you chalk those effort issues up to? What do you think that's a function of?
That's a great, I don't know. I mean, I have been baffled by this team. I've been baffled by Mark Pope. Mark Pope was Mr. Energy, Mr. Positivity, and he's looked like a person that's dog was killed. Yeah. And I don't know what has happened with that. He referred to something happening during the Louisville game in the pregame locker room. Yep. And no one knows what it is or even why he referred to it. That's obviously been a lot of mystery. So it's been bizarre. And it's so weird because this team, when I met them during the preseason, seemed like the nicest group of kids in the world. Like, no attitude issues. You know, you guys have been around when teams seem like, oh, these guys, I don't know. I didn't feel like that. So I don't know. It has been every Kentucky team in my lifetime. I felt like I understood why things were happening. This year, I haven't. Well, I agree with you, though. I'll know a lot more after, say, we play at Alabama, and then there are 2 games at home back-to-back against bad teams. Talk to me after that. I think I'll have a better – because, you can be really good and lose at Alabama. You could be really good and lose to y'all, right? So I want to see what happens when we play these teams we should be beaten. Do we start to look like ourselves?
What Rick Pitino has been pointing to, much to St. John's fan chagrin, is the fact that there's always continuity issues and that the team hasn't come together yet. And these were complaints that we've been hearing throughout the years, but in the NIL era, you're talking about a ton of brand new faces, guys that haven't played together. And so, what we have seen, and I can't speak for you all, but the reality is the team that you see in November is often a very different team than the team you see in February.
Yeah, but I would say for Rick and for Mark, like, Michigan's good. They got new guys. Like, Purdue's got everybody back and they look bad.
But the complexity of the system may be a little bit different.
Maybe,
we know the Rick Pitino system is not something that guys just immediately pick up.
But didn't you have Bryce Hopkins last year? Wasn't
No.
Okay.
No, he was
obviously we had Bryce here. I pulled for Bryce. I think he kind of got screwed. He kind of got caught at the end of the Cal era and kind of got overlooked. I hope he has success. Yeah, I don't know.
He's going to be really important for this game for St. John. He hasn't been great the last 4 games, and he's extremely important for this game for you guys.
Yeah. So see, I have not watched. Let's see. You lost to Alabama. Who are your other 2 losses?
Lost to Iowa State by 1 point in Las Vegas.
I didn't see that game. And what was the other one?
And they lost to Alabama. Alabama, Auburn, and Iowa State.
Auburn. Okay, so I saw the Alabama game, and I thought y'all were really good. I just
And
thought,
that was a game we had no point
Phylon
guard.
got hot. That happens.
But they all got hot that game. I mean, they were
That was
ridiculous.
the best backcourt we've ever seen.
That was a great game. I mean, that was a great game. Yeah. Alabama, though, Phylon, I've watched him. Like, he'll score 35 one game and 3 the next one. Like, you just don't know what he's going to do.
We got him on the wrong night. No
question. You get him on the wrong night.
We got all of their guards on the wrong night.
I'm surprised you lost to Auburn, though, because I don't think Stephen Pearl's a good coach.
That was the worst of the 3 losses. No question about it.
Yeah, they had
that's kind of how we look at probably, even though, I mean, the Gonzaga's good. But the Carolina loss is bad. To lose at home to Carolina, I don't think Carolina's good at all. Yeah. And that was a bad loss for us.
Matt, there's a lot of storylines going into this game. Pope versus Pitino coaching against UK again, 2 preseason top 10 teams. But the talent on the floor is what's going to make this game so fun. Jalen Lowe and Otega Owe versus Ian Jackson and Joe Sansan and Osiah Sellers. St. John's front court. Zuby Ejiofor, Bryce Hopkins, Dylan Mitchell against Brandon Garrison, Malachi Marino, and, well, it sounds like Jayden Quaintance. Where do you see the advantages being for Kentucky, and where do you see the disadvantages being in this game?
I know this is weird to say because I know you all have been complaining about this issue. I do think you guys have more dudes who can go get a bucket than we do, that can like get their own shot and get a bucket. I think this team's biggest long-term ceiling is they don't have guys who can go get their own buckets, right? And that's a problem. Really, Jalen Lowe may be the only guy who can beat his man off the dribble and get a shot. So I think you guys, if it's a 1-possession game with 4 minutes to go, I like your all's chances. I think we can have some impact in physicality if we play the right way, especially with Diabate. And we'll see what we get from Quaintance. I have no idea. But I have to tell you, I think y'all are going to win. I think you guys are better suited today for this game. Now, if we played in a month and a half, it might be a different result. But I think you guys are going to win. The one advantage is we're going to have a great crowd. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have an Atlanta UK crowd, which is a better crowd than Rupp Arena. If I'm St. John's, I'd rather play us in Rupp than play us in Atlanta, because that's the kind of crowd. That's the kind of crowd we usually get. Now, I don't know if that changes after all these last few games. That crowd in Nashville for the Gonzaga game was wild. And part of the reason they booed is because they were wild. It's a different set of fans that come to those games in Nashville and Atlanta. It's more of a blue-collar group of fans, whereas Rupp is kind of wine and cheese fans, right?
And also season ticket holders.
So I know a lot of people going to that game Saturday, and they're like, so I still don't understand why we're not the second game. I think we've played the CBS Classic like 12 years. We've been the second game every year. I have no idea why this is the first game. But regardless, it'll be wild. So if we win, I think it'll just be the crowd is good for us at the end. But I do think you all are better, even with the struggles. I don't understand your Auburn game, but Iowa State and Alabama, to me, were not bad losses for you all.
They weren't. And the reality is I could sleep with those losses, even, them being what they were. The Auburn game, I think, was, at least I hope, was an aberration, right? I'm hoping that was a one-off and it was the wrong night.
Rick used to do those. I mean, you all haven't had him very long. Rick used to have one of those a year. Yeah. Like he even at Louisville, he'd have one game where they just lose to somebody not good by a big amount, and you'd go, like when they won the national championship, they lost in the SEC tournament final that year to Vandy, right? Like they,
And it's not this year's Vandy team, let me tell you.
Yeah, and then in '97 when he lost in the finals, they lost at home to South Carolina in the last game of the season, and you're like, what is happening? So he does that from time to time.
Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough for taking some time previewing this game. It is the game that we've had circled forever. It is the game that we certainly are most looking forward to. CBS on Saturday to kick off a great slate of hoops for sure. Kentucky.
How many more years do y'all think Rick's going to coach?
2 or 3.
I hope he coaches longer. I have to tell you.
You know what? I think a lot depends on this year. I think if they can reach the expectations of this year, which is at least a second weekend, it's going to continue to drive him, because I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting to get a little fed up with the lack of continuity in the NIL thing.
Well, I think I use him as an example of a guy who has adjusted to it better than a lot of these.
He's bought into it for sure.
Yeah.
He also knows that he needs it. Like he understands,
especially in St. John's. He knows how vital it is and how important it was to changing everything here.
I love New York. It's my second favorite place to Kentucky, and then sometimes it's even my favorite. And I was a little kid the last time you all were good, and so when watching you all be good and watching the Garden rock for games, I love it. And I think it makes college basketball better. I think having a good team in a big city, because there just aren't a lot of good teams in big cities, I think makes the sport better. So I want him to stay. And I also want, when he leaves, you guys to get a good coach, because having a good team in the Garden, I think, has been good for college basketball. I care about college basketball as a sport. College basketball as a sport needs Duke good. It needs Kentucky good. It needs some of North Carolina, Kansas good. But then it needs teams that can get where media is to be good. And look, New York is where all the media is. So having St. John's good, I hope it continues, because I wish they had beaten Arkansas, not just because of Cal. I think
me too.
The tournament will be better if Rick can make one more run. Yeah. So I hope it happens.
Well, hopefully there's more than one, and hopefully there's one this year. And again, appreciate the kind words, Matt. I know St. John's fans certainly echo those sentiments, and hopefully the winning continues for St. John's. They've got 3 in a row, looking for a 4th one on Saturday against Kentucky.
Beat Hurley. He sucks.
Yes, he does suck.
We agree.
We beat him twice last year. Hopefully that continues. He's Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, everything Kentucky Wildcats. Can't thank you enough for taking some time with us.
Thank you, guys.
Johnny Nation, it is the big matchup on Saturday, St. John's and Kentucky. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you after that game. Appreciate it as always. We'll catch you next time.